Balatro is an indie deck builder card-based roguelike mathcore not poker game that is considered to be Game of the Year 2024 by the internet at large. Fashionably late then, I took a glimpse at Jimbo's grand adventure and see how I fare. Here's why Balatro is Game of the Year, but not for me. I'll save you a thorough explanation and just assume you roughly know what the game is about. However, even if a lot of people would call it a roguelike, or a deck builder, or a card game, I on the other hand would just call it a math game. And based on that observation, it becomes very clear to me why I don't exactly enjoy it that much. As you slowly build up your deck and purchase various jokers to attain a higher score and beat the numbers set by the game, for the most part, accurate calculations of the score would take too long for the average human being. Instead, by feeding the various multiplication effects into your brain, it returns a rough estimate of how many points you are going to get. I said it was a math game, but it's more a math based on vibes. If someone asked me what 481 times 2469 is, I could sit down and do the calculations for them, or I could just say it's roughly a million. The latter is just about how Balatro works. And in order for my next points to make sense, I have to give the disclaimer that I actually did have to punch this one into the calculator to make sure my guess wasn't off by that much. The game itself is rather simple then, and it doesn't assume you would do all the calculations anyways. The gameplay loop is familiarizing yourself with the outcomes of the setups in every given constellations and then estimating the result. As you progress through the game, the numbers become bigger and more variables are being added, giving a satisfying payoff once you do break through the wall and crush every consecutive blind. For every single encounter, there's a period of thinking, discarding, and strategizing, and it usually culminates with a bit of praying at the end, hoping your napkin math was accurate enough. There is obviously the luck of the draw involved that makes so many indie games popular, and every run is different. You get to choose various loadouts and starter decks, you get to reroll for your favorite archetypes, or you just run with what you are given. And this is all great. I believe Balatro understands the type of game it's trying to be, and perfectly executes on that premise. It is the distilled essence of an indie roguelike deck builder to a point where all other fluff is removed and only numbers remain. And, well, the fancy fire animation to give it that little extra dopamine. In that regard, I would not hate it if anyone calls Balatro their Game of the Year. In fact, I'm always glad when the product of a single person. What started as a silly idea of a dude wanting to relive some of his childhood, playing cards, becoming something far greater, even going so far as to sending warning signs to the video game industry at large that maybe big budget studios developing live service slop isn't what gamers truly want. And I agree. So this video isn't talking about Balatro being bad at all. It sticks the landing in all aspects, from the presentations to the ease of use. The first playing experience is brilliant, the interface is intuitive, the various little jokers warm my heart, and all of it is rounded out by a brilliantly mesmerizing soundtrack and simple but satisfying audio design. However, after playing it for the first time, I didn't feel like going back. What you see on screen is my second time playing, just recording a run for the video. The first time I played around 4 hours, until I got a win and then lose in the endless mode soon after. The challenge with these types of games is figuring out what makes you come back to them. Obviously the gameplay loop itself is fun and addicting to a lot of people, but for me, it doesn't really work. I don't get the same satisfaction from eyeballing some numbers and hoping they're enough for me to advance. I am terrible at math, so the simple operation of doing it in my head doesn't do anything for me. And if I have to do math, I prefer it to be in a way that I can do the calculations to the end to guarantee the outcome. An example that would be pretty close to Balatro in terms of core gameplay that I enjoyed a lot more is Slay the Spire. The actual math is less complex and the cards, layouts and effects are simple, but on higher difficulty settings it just resonates with me a lot more, because losing a run wouldn't immediately discourage me. I know where I went wrong and that my build wasn't good enough, and that would give me inspiration for what to improve on in the next run, whether it be my general approach to selecting cards or items, or specifically what builds to go for and what to ignore. Losing in Balatro just doesn't give me any tangible feedback. I just go again and hope I pick a better combination of things. Now in essence these two games are the same, and I am pretty confident in saying that this is in part skill issue, because someone who can parse numbers a bit better would be able to go through the same development as I did in Slay the Spire. I would go so far as to say, for me personally, losing in Slay the Spire is satisfying because the feedback it gives me encourages me to try again, whereas in Balatro, losing just makes me feel like I wasted my time. I am totally aware that this is more of a perspective difference. As stated before, I think in ways the gameplay loop works, these games are pretty similar. I would say though that due to the esoteric approach of Balatro and its reduction of its parts to mostly just numbers, it gets fatiguing for a person who never really enjoyed math at its core to begin with. That is not a problem though, as I still enjoyed Balatro for as long as I have, I just never played it all that much. Clocking in at about 5.5 hours on Steam at the time of writing, I feel like I have reached a peak of enjoyment that I can get out of it, and I don't feel like returning to it. A question you might ask yourself now is I wanted to change anything in Balatro to make it more enjoyable for me, and to that the answer is no, absolutely not. I think Balatro already is a perfect product, it's just not for me. In a world with so many different things and people in it, not every product needs to appeal to everyone. In fact, I believe the opposite is true. Products can only be interesting if they focus on a specific target audience. Video games especially have so many different archetypes that are enjoyed by so many different people, that I think that even Game of the Year is such a pointless award to begin with. But even then I don't hate the title. It's just for fun after all, and I think giving it to the little guy sends an important message that might even improve video games as a whole in the future. I think having played Balatro was a great exercise in learning how game design works and interfaces with me as a player. It has shown me what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy with this specific archetype of video game. In the end, Balatro is deserving of the title Game of the Year, but it isn't exactly for me, as it is mostly a math game, and the last time I checked, most people dislike math, so either that was a lie, or maybe my understanding of the game is entirely wrong. In either case, I hope you enjoyed this brief summary of my opinions on the hot new thing on the block. If my motivations hold up, you can expect a similarly structured video every Saturday from now on, and if you really can't get enough of me, you can find me streaming on Twitch as well. Until next time.